Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Joseph. The artist is Suit of Lights. The song, Ritual, Routine, Control. I have no idea even what kind of music we're getting in store here. This could be indie rock, maybe folk, maybe even electronic. At least that's what the artwork tells me, and that covers already a pretty wide gamut. So let's dive in and see what Suit of Lights is bringing to the table today. That's 7. Yep.
Who is it that we call sinners? Who is it that makes us prisoners? Who is there to blame? It's only us. When you're a
The
child,
chord
you
progression and even melody feel a little early
before
Beatles.
you have learned the rules of the game, eventually you must be tamed. Locked in the cold of the cell.
So 4/4 for the chorus, but it's
Stuck on the set of your own
almost
show.
angelic,
Life with no parole.
maybe anthemic,
You got
uplifting at the very least.
yourself so comfortable and it's all ritual, routine, control. 'Cause you feel it in your soul. You know that life is all your own. Take apart the systems of control. Feel it in your soul. You know that life is all your own. Take away permission for control.
Interesting note choices here. So I do think that there is some Beatles influence on this, but also I think it would be impossible to deny the Cardiac's influence, directly or indirectly. Whether this group listened to Cardiacs and were influenced by it directly, or they heard bands that were influenced by Cardiacs, there's something about the harmonic structure, particularly in the verse, that feels just a little off kilter, that when paired with the odd rhythmic devices absolutely scream Cardiacs. It is a bit more palatable, harmonically, I would say, than Cardiacs can be at times. Cardiacs loves to do their cyclical, non-linear chord progressions that sort of just keep staying in a specific mode rather than actually progressing emotional components. And you can kind of feel some of that at play in here. Particularly, I think when you also pay attention to the lead melody, both on the guitar and the vocals during the verse, you'll find that there's just not a lot of movement to them. You can hear all these moving parts. There are pitches being changed, there's chords changing, but the vibe, the atmosphere is kind of static. It's really bizarre, and I think it's one of those key elements that once I kind of figured out Cardiac's does, it's really easy to pick up in other tracks that were influenced by that group. But it's this feeling that there's so much movement and yet we're kind of just standing still. It feels counterproductive. It feels counterintuitive. How does this work? There's so much movement. Why isn't the song going anywhere? There's a lot of energy exerted to not do anything. And I absolutely feel a lot of that here in the verse that's been translated into something a bit more modern and digestible, something a fair bit poppier in a lot of ways than Cardiac's can be at times. They certainly veer off into the experimental at times. But I find that to be really interesting because, of course, all this movement is happening and there's the time signature stuff too. A majority of this track is in 7-beat phrases. Consistently working with the way that's the easiest to work with 7 is to split it right down the middle, giving you 3.5 beats and 3.5 beats. We don't really count half beats in time. You can't really have 3.5 beat bar. But the gist of this is generally that you're going to have downbeat accents on the first half and offbeat accents on the second half. And you absolutely feel that here. That is a very clear cornerstone to a 7-beat phrase. If you feel that, it's probably always 7. But we find clarity in the chorus. We shift to full 4/4, symmetrical, standard, defined. This is also the section where we have this angelic feeling in general. There's joy, there's positivity, there's optimism. I called it anthemic at a point. I'm not entirely sure I stand behind that, but maybe at that segment it really felt anthemic to me. It is certainly something to, aspirational, I think would be a good word for this. Harmonically, we have found stability with pretty much zero dissonance or tension at all. Rhythmically, we have found harmony in how synergetic everything is, but also symmetrical. This is short-lived though. We eventually go back to the verse as we progress the song forward, and from here on out, harmonic instability, harmonic stationariness. Again, lots of moving parts. The chords move, but we're not actually changing the vibe of this section. We return back to the 7-beat phrase. It is back to the off-kilter ideas, and this takes us to the end of the track that is complete with a guitar solo with some very choice note choices. Yeah, dude, it's like I could feel where those notes should have been. They were just slightly out of place. It isn't out of the key. You're just kind of working on the wrong interval of the chord we're in. So there's some tension because the note you're using isn't in the role that it should be within the melody itself. And that's what makes it feel right, but also kind of wrong at the same time. You don't have the harmonic clashing, but looking at the way that melody is traditionally built in the West, something's obviously a little off here. And so this off-kilter feeling persists until the track finishes. And so the song is off-kilter, perfection, off-kilter. It is a song called Ritual, Routine, Control. Now you can certainly ritually and routinely do things off kilter, but control, I think, certainly leans more towards that 4/4 standardized idea, more so than the rest. And it almost seems to me as if the chorus, I'm going to call it, of this track is an idealized form of whatever this ritual routine stuff is supposed to be applying to, and that our narrator simply can't reach that ideal. They consistently find themselves in a less than ideal form of whatever that is. A little bit more disjointed, a little less perfect, a little less pristine. That's to me what this song is about. It's the juxtaposition between what you wish things were like and how they are, or how you wish you were versus what you are. Maybe not necessarily an inability to change, but a consistent friction towards change. As much as you try, you always end up right back where you were. I don't think I have anything else to add to this. I will say that there is an interesting rhythmic focus on the melody in the verses, but more of a melodic quality to the melody in the chorus. Almost as if, once again, this idea, this melody of the song finally becomes what it's more naturally built for, focusing on pitches and how they persist against the harmony more so than this trying to keep up with the odd canter of the music behind it. Failing at its one job because it's trying to do something else, because it's simply trying to exist within this atmosphere. There's a lot of things in here. I think if I picked up another listen or two, I might be able to hear more of these elements of maybe not necessarily imperfections, but blemishes, if you will, of what something should be, how it's realized in the chorus, and then how its usage elsewhere in the verses differs from that in small ways. And once you have all of these small differentiations, you end up with something as awkward and unwieldy as the verse is. It's a very cool concept in general, and I think the execution on this is fairly well done. Let's dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. I caught on to the themes well enough, but I had the wrong perspective on them. This is about perversions of standardization, where the verse is a wilder form of the more collected chorus. But I assumed that the perfection was what the narrator wanted. And it's actually the inverse. It talks about how society conforms you in to follow specific sets of rules, but that it's more fun to break them, do your own thing, have your own identity. The first verse says, when you're a child, you run wild before you have learned the rules of the game, and eventually even you must be tamed. The ending of the track, as we push into that slightly off-canter guitar solo, says, because you feel it in your soul. You know that life is all your own once you take apart the systems of control. The chorus, then, is about routine, ritual, control, about keeping everything exactly where it needs to be. And it says that once you slot yourself into this, it can kind of get comfortable. You can even like the cell that you're trapped within. But as the end of the track says, somewhere in your soul, you've got to take that control back. You got to free yourself. So that's where the two halves meet, intersect in what they're trying to say. Yeah, I think that works rather well. Maybe it could have been a bit more playful, broke the rules just a little bit more. It's still, I think, rather safe, but they are going for, at least what sounds like to me, a more palatable sound. They're not trying to venture into the avant-garde. So I think for what they want to do, the execution on this is very well done. Those are my thoughts on Suit of Light's ritual, routine, control. What did you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this song? Let me know. Drop all of that and anything else you'd like to into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening. whenever you choose to watch my videos.